Water does not accumulate tension. It releases it naturally. Where pressure builds, movement redistributes it. Where weight gathers, depth absorbs it. Nothing remains concentrated for long. This is why water rarely fractures. It bends. It spreads. It adapts. The body mirrors this behavior. When it is allowed to rest deeply, muscles do not need instruction to relax. They release when vigilance fades. Thoughts do not need to be silenced. They thin when attention stops holding them. Sleep is not an action. It is the absence of resistance. Water never resisted gravity. It cooperated with it. This cooperation created rivers, created oceans, created patterns so stable they outlast civilizations. Rest follows the same logic. It is not something achieved. It is something allowed. When nothing is demanded, the system reorganizes itself. The nervous system slows. The breath deepens. The sense of self softens. Boundaries become less defined, not lost, less necessary. In water, boundaries are temporary. Shorelines shift. Channels change. Depths rearrange. Nothing insists on permanence. This impermanence is calming because it removes expectation. Nothing has to stay as it is. Nothing has to become something else. It can simply move into another state. As awareness drifts, there is less interest in direction, less concern for sequence. Moments blend. Transitions disappear. Time stretches, then loosens. This is not confusion. It is freedom from measurement. Water never measured progress. It measured balance. When balance shifted, it moved. When balance returned, it rested. Human rest is similar. It is not about duration. It is about equilibrium. When equilibrium is reached, sleep deepens naturally. The story no longer needs to guide. It becomes background, like rain on distant ground, like waves far below a ship, present, but not demanding attention. This is where listening turns into drifting, where words lose shape, where meaning dissolves into sound. This is intentional, not as a technique, but as a return to a state where nothing needs interpretation. Water never explained itself. It demonstrated continuity, and continuity is enough. There is no requirement to stay aware, no requirement to remember, no requirement to follow. The system functions on its own. Just as water cycles without supervision, just as tides move without command, just as rest arrives without being called. The deeper this state becomes, the quieter everything feels. Not silent, balanced. The kind of quiet that does not feel empty. It feels held by gravity, held by rhythm, held by continuity. Nothing presses forward, nothing pulls back, nothing interrupts. Even thought becomes spacious, appearing, fading, without attachment. This is the natural state of deep rest. Not absence, but spaciousness. Water holds space effortlessly. It fills without tension. It empties without loss. It continues without urgency. And in this continuation, there is nothing to manage, nothing to correct, nothing to resolve. The body knows what to do. The breath knows where to go. The mind knows how to loosen. You do not need to assist. You do not need to guide. You do not need to remain present. Presence remains on its own. When effort leaves, just as water remains, even when unseen, just as depth persists, even when unmeasured, the current continues, the flow deepens, and rest settles quietly, without signal. Water does not pause to recognize itself. It does not need awareness to continue being what it is. And this is the quiet lesson it offers to rest. You do not need to monitor the moment. You do not need to stay present. Presence happens on its own when effort leaves. The deepest forms of stillness are not empty. They are full of continuity. Water beneath ice continues to move, slowly, silently, unseen. The surface may appear frozen, but the current remains. Sleep works the same way. The surface of awareness quiets, but deeper processes remain active. Repair, rebalancing, release. Nothing stops. Nothing collapses. It only changes depth. This is why sleep feels timeless. Not because time disappears, but because time no longer demands attention. Water never counted itself. It never measured duration. It moved according to gravity, according to shape, according to patience. Human rest follows similar rules. The body knows how to descend. Not abruptly, gradually, like sediment settling, like waves losing momentum, like light fading without darkness rushing in. There is no signal for this transition, no instruction required, just the absence of resistance. The world written in water does not insist on meaning. It does not carry conclusions. It does not resolve questions. It allows things to remain unfinished. And unfinished is not incomplete. It is open. Open systems endure longer than closed ones. Water teaches this through erosion, through softness, through yielding. It never fights obstacles directly. It surrounds them. It waits. It finds another path. This patience is not weakness. It is inevitability. And inevitability is calming, because it removes urgency. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be decided. The current exists. It will continue whether watched or not. The mind can rest because it is not responsible for holding reality together. Water never asked permission to shape land. It never asked for recognition. It did not hurry. And because it did not hurry, it endured. As attention softens further, there is less distinction between listening and drifting. The sound becomes texture. The words become movement. Meaning dissolves into rhythm. This is not loss of clarity. It is a different kind of clarity. One that does not depend on focus. One that does not require memory. One that does not ask to be retained. Water does not retain shape. It adapts to it. And adaptation is restful. There is no need to remember what was said before. There is no need to anticipate what comes next. The present moment does not need to be framed. It exists. And that is enough. In deep water, light bends. Sound travels differently. Distance loses meaning. This is why the ocean feels vast. Not because of size, but because of silence. Silence that does not feel empty. Silence that feels held. The same holding exists here. Nothing presses. Nothing pulls. Nothing requires response. Breathing continues on its own. Heartbeat continues on its own. The body remembers how to function without supervision. This memory is older than conscious thought, older than language, older than intention. Water existed before attention, before identity, before worry, and it carries that pre-attentive calm into everything it touches, including rest, including sleep, including this moment. There is no transition to observe, no threshold to cross, only a gradual widening, like the edge of a river slowly disappearing into marsh, like movement becoming area, like effort becoming stillness. Nothing announces the change, because nothing needs to. Water does not mark moments. It flows through them, and now, there is no reason to remain alert, no reason to hold on to sound, no reason to follow. The current continues. The depth increases. Awareness loosens. And rest settles without effort. Water never announces an ending. It simply becomes quieter. Movement does not stop. It spreads out. Sound softens. Edges dissolve. This is how all deep processes conclude. Not by finishing, but by losing the need to continue actively. The longest rivers do not rush toward the sea. They widen. They slow. They release the urgency that once shaped them. By the time they arrive, they are no longer rivers. They are transition. The body understands this instinctively. When rest deepens, there is no signal that says now you are asleep. There is only less effort, less direction, less need to hold anything together. Awareness loosens, not because it is taken, but because it is no longer needed. Water has always trusted gravity. It never questioned where it would go. It never feared disappearance. It knew it would change form, without leaving existence. This knowledge does not belong to thought. It belongs to matter. And because the human body is mostly water, this knowledge is already present. It does not need to be learned. It only needs space. As the story continues, it does not introduce anything new. It does not add. It subtracts. Sound remains. Rhythm remains. Meaning fades gently, like reflection at dusk. Nothing is lost. Only the sharpness of attention softens. Water at night is different, not because it moves differently, but because it is no longer observed. The same currents continue, without being seen. The same depth remains, without being measured. This is the kind of quiet that does not require awareness. It exists independently, just as sleep exists, without needing to be entered deliberately. You do not fall into sleep. You drift toward it, and drifting has no direction, only allowance. The world written in water was never meant to be understood. It was meant to be inhabited quietly, without commentary, without interpretation, just as the body inhabits rest, without needing explanation. Breathing finds its own depth. Muscles release without instruction. Thoughts thin, until they are no longer separate. There is no narrative here, only continuity. Water never told stories. It carried time forward, without labeling it. And in this state, time no longer needs shape. Moments blur, boundaries soften, awareness becomes wide, and then fades. Not into darkness, but into neutrality. Neutrality is not emptiness. It is balance. The absence of pull, the absence of push, the absence of needing to respond. Water rests like this. In the deepest places, pressure increases, yet movement becomes minimal. Nothing struggles. Nothing resists. Everything is held. This holding is not tight. It is vast. It allows everything, without demanding anything. As listening becomes less distinct, there is no effort to follow. The sound exists. That is enough. The rhythm exists. That is enough. The presence exists. That is enough. Sleep does not need permission. It arrives when nothing stands in its way. Water does not prepare for stillness. Stillness emerges naturally when movement no longer needs to define itself. The same happens here. Nothing needs to happen next. Nothing needs to resolve. Nothing needs to conclude. The ending is not an event. It is a widening, a softening, a release of definition. Water does not disappear. When it becomes calm, it becomes deeper. And depth is quiet. Depth does not ask to be noticed. It does not announce itself. It simply holds. As awareness sinks, there is no transition to observe, no line to cross, no final thought to release, only a gradual absence of effort. The world continues. Water continues. Breathing continues. And attention no longer needs to. There is no reason to stay awake, no reason to listen closely, no reason to remain present. Presence remains on its own, just as water remains, without being watched, just as time continues, without being counted, just as rest arrives, without being called. Nothing is ending, everything is settling, and that is enough. Water does not remember events. It remembers pressure. It remembers weight. It remembers repetition. What passes through water is not stored as story, but as imprint. This is why rivers remember mountains, long after the mountains have softened. This is why oceans remember continents that no longer exist. Memory in water is not emotional, it is structural. And because it is structural, it does not fade. Human memory works differently. It fragments. It attaches meaning. It creates narrative. But beneath narrative, there is a deeper layer that functions more like water. A layer that remembers patterns, not details. Rhythms, not names. Cycles, not moments. This is the layer that awakens when the mind slows, when attention loosens its grip on sequence, when time stops needing to move forward. In this state, the difference between past and present becomes less important, not because it disappears, but because it stops demanding separation. Water never separated time. It carried it. The same water that moved through ancient valleys moves through modern bodies. Not metaphorically, literally. The molecules do not care about centuries. They do not recognize borders. They do not distinguish eras. They move, and movement itself becomes continuity. This continuity is calming because it does not ask for interpretation. It does not require belief. It requires only allowance. Civilizations once organized themselves around this allowance. They learned when to wait by watching water recede. They learned when to act by watching it return. They learned humility by watching it overwhelm, and patience, by watching it withdraw. These lessons were not taught. They were absorbed. They entered behavior before language formed around them. This is why water appears in the oldest rituals, not as symbol, as presence. Cleansing did not mean removal. It meant reset. Immersion did not mean transformation. It meant return. To step into water was to step into continuity, to be reminded that existence does not stop and start. It flows. The modern world struggles with this idea. It prefers interruption, deadlines, beginnings, endings. But the body still prefers flow. It still responds to rhythms older than schedules. Breathing slows near water. Heart rate softens. Muscles release. Not because water commands it, because the body recognizes a familiar structure. A structure where nothing needs to be held in place. Where gravity is shared. Where effort distributes itself naturally. Sleep follows this same principle. It is not collapse. It is redistribution. Awareness does not disappear. It spreads. Thought does not stop. It thins. The sharpness dulls. Edges soften. And the need to understand dissolves. Water never understood itself. It functioned. And functioning was enough. As the mind drifts, it returns to a similar logic. Not asking what comes next. Not demanding meaning. Simply allowing continuity. This is why sleep stories do not require plot. They require consistency, tone, pacing, a sense that nothing urgent will happen, that nothing needs response, that nothing will suddenly change. Water promises this without words. It moves slowly, predictably. Even storms follow rules. Even floods obey gravity. Even destruction resolves into stillness. This reliability is what allows surrender. Not trust in outcome, trust in process. The world written in water never rushes toward resolution. It allows space between movements, long pauses, quiet stretches, moments where nothing happens, and nothing needs to. These moments are not empty. They are full of alignment. Alignment between body and environment, between breath and rhythm, between awareness and rest. When humans forget this alignment, they become tense. They seek control. They try to force certainty. But water never forced certainty. It demonstrated inevitability. Not what would happen, but that something would continue. And continuation is enough to allow rest. As listening becomes softer, as the story becomes less distinct, nothing important is lost. The purpose was never retention. It was regulation. Regulation of nervous rhythm, of internal tempo, of mental pressure. Water regulates landscapes. It redistributes energy. It carries excess away. It fills what is empty. And it does so quietly, without commentary, without evaluation. The same can happen here. Nothing needs to be followed. Nothing needs to be remembered. The sound exists. The rhythm exists. And that is sufficient. Just as rivers exist, whether named or not. Just as oceans move, whether charted or not. The world written in water continues beneath awareness, holding time gently, carrying weight softly, allowing rest to arrive without effort. And as the current deepens, there is no signal to stay awake, no cue to remain alert, only the quiet consistency of movement without demand. Water never asked permission, and rest does not need instruction. It arrives. When resistance fades, water does not measure time, it moves through it. What we call past and future are only different states of the same flow. Long before memory learned how to separate moments, water already understood continuity. It did not need beginnings. It did not need endings. It simply moved. When early humans watched water, they were not studying nature. They were witnessing a rhythm that would later shape their own. Days were understood through light, but years were understood through water. Dry seasons and wet seasons taught patience more effectively than words. Waiting became a skill. Stillness became familiar. And from this familiarity, a quieter kind of awareness emerged. Water never demanded attention. It invited presence. It asked nothing, yet everything depended on it. This created a particular relationship with reality, one where force was less important than timing, one where resistance softened into adaptation, and slowly, without intention. This relationship shaped how people thought. Belief did not begin as explanation. It began as trust. Trust that water would return. Trust that absence was temporary. Trust that balance existed, even when it was not visible. This trust allowed rest, and rest allowed continuity. Civilizations often imagine themselves as creators of order, but order already existed. Water demonstrated it constantly, not through rules, but through repetition. The same movements, the same cycles, the same returns. Over time, repetition became certainty. Certainty became structure. Structure became society. But beneath every structure, water remained unchanged. When humans began to write, they wrote about kings and wars. But water wrote about land. It shaped valleys slowly. It carried sediment patiently. It erased what could not endure, and it preserved what could. The quietest places on earth are often where water has rested longest. Lakes hold reflections that do not age. Oceans hold silence that does not judge. Even rivers, always moving, contain a deep stillness beneath their surface. This stillness is not emptiness. It is stability, and stability is what allows rest. Human bodies recognize this instinctively. The sound of flowing water slows breathing. The sight of waves reduces urgency. The presence of water softens vigilance. These responses are not learned. They are remembered. Memory does not always belong to the mind. Sometimes it belongs to the body. The body remembers what the land remembers. That water meant safety. That water meant return. That water meant life could continue without constant effort. And so, in moments of rest, the body moves closer to this memory. Thought becomes fluid. Boundaries loosen. The sharp edges of identity soften. This is not loss. It is alignment. Alignment with a rhythm older than language. Sleep follows the same logic. It is not a shutdown. It is a transition, a lowering of effort, a return to flow. Just as rivers return to the sea, attention returns to stillness. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. The deeper the water, the quieter it becomes. The deeper the rest, the less the mind speaks. And in that quiet, there is no need for explanation. Water never explained itself. It demonstrated. It demonstrated patience by wearing down stone. It demonstrated resilience by continuing through obstruction. It demonstrated humility by yielding, yet prevailing. These lessons were absorbed long before they were named. They became part of how humans built, how they waited, how they believed. Even conflict followed water's logic. It surged. It receded. It left behind changed ground. But after every surge, stillness returned. Water does not hold on to disturbance. It absorbs, then releases. This is why water heals landscapes. This is why it heals attention. It does not insist on remembering pain. It carries it away. As awareness drifts, as thought loses its grip, the mind follows the same pattern. Tension dissolves. Effort releases. What remains is presence without direction. Presence without demand. There is no task here. No lesson to learn. No conclusion waiting. Water never concluded. It continued. And continuation is enough. You do not need to witness every movement. You do not need to stay alert. Water has always moved without being watched. It shaped continents in silence. It shapes civilizations without applause. It shapes rest without instruction. As the story continues, it does not seek your attention. It moves beneath it, carrying memory softly, carrying weight gently, carrying everything forward, without asking anything in return. The world written in water is not meant to be read. It is meant to be felt. And feeling does not require wakefulness, only allowance, only letting go, only the quiet acceptance that nothing needs to be held together right now. Water holds it. It always has. And as you rest, as the edges soften, as the flow deepens, the same calm that shaped land and time moves quietly through you, unnoticed, uninterrupted, continuing. Water does not measure time. It moves through it. What we call past and future are only different states of the same flow. Long before memory learned how to separate moments, water already understood continuity. It did not need beginnings. It did not need endings. It simply moved. When early humans watched water, they were not studying nature. They were witnessing a rhythm that would later shape their own. Days were understood through light, but years were understood through water. Dry seasons and wet seasons taught patience more effectively than words. Waiting became a skill. Stillness became familiar. And from this familiarity, a quieter kind of awareness emerged. Water never demanded attention. It invited presence. It asked nothing, yet everything depended on it. This created a particular relationship with reality, one where force was less important than timing, one where resistance softened into adaptation, and slowly, without intention, this relationship shaped how people thought. Belief did not begin as explanation. It began as trust. Trust that water would return. Trust that absence was temporary. Trust that balance existed, even when it was not visible. This trust allowed rest, and rest allowed continuity. Civilizations often imagine themselves as creators of order, but order already existed. Water demonstrated it constantly, not through rules, but through repetition. The same movements, the same cycles, the same returns. Over time, repetition became certainty. Certainty became structure. Structure became society. But beneath every structure, water remained unchanged. When humans began to write, they wrote about kings and wars. But water wrote about land. It shaped valleys slowly. It carried sediment patiently. It erased what could not endure, and it preserved what could. The quietest places on earth are often where water has rested longest. Lakes hold reflections that do not age. Oceans hold silence that does not judge. Even rivers, always moving, contain a deep stillness beneath their surface. This stillness is not emptiness. It is stability, and stability is what allows rest. Human bodies recognize this instinctively. The sound of flowing water slows breathing. The sight of waves reduces urgency. The presence of water softens vigilance. These responses are not learned. They are remembered. Memory does not always belong to the mind. Sometimes it belongs to the body. The body remembers what the land remembers. That water meant safety. That water meant return. That water meant life could continue without constant effort. And so, in moments of rest, the body moves closer to this memory. Thought becomes fluid. Boundaries loosen. The sharp edges of identity soften. This is not loss. It is alignment. Alignment with a rhythm older than language. Sleep follows the same logic. It is not a shutdown. It is a transition, a lowering of effort, a return to flow. Just as rivers return to the sea, attention returns to stillness. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. The deeper the water, the quieter it becomes. The deeper the rest, the less the mind speaks. And in that quiet, there is no need for explanation. Water never explained itself. It demonstrated. It demonstrated patience. By wearing down stone, it demonstrated resilience. By continuing through obstruction, it demonstrated humility. By yielding, yet prevailing, these lessons were absorbed. Long before they were named, they became part of how humans built, how they waited, how they believed. Even conflict followed water's logic. It surged. It receded. It left behind changed ground. But after every surge, stillness returned. Water does not hold on to disturbance. It absorbs, then releases. This is why water heals landscapes. This is why it heals attention. It does not insist on remembering pain. It carries it away. As awareness drifts, as thought loses its grip, the mind follows the same pattern. Tension dissolves. Effort releases. What remains is presence without direction. Presence without demand. There is no task here. No lesson to learn. No conclusion waiting. Water never concluded. It continued. And continuation is enough. You do not need to witness every movement. You do not need to stay alert. Water has always moved, without being watched. It shaped continents, in silence. It shaped civilizations, without applause. It shapes rest, without instruction. As the story continues, it does not seek your attention. It moves beneath it, carrying memory softly, carrying weight gently, carrying everything forward, without asking anything in return. The world written in water is not meant to be read. It is meant to be felt. And feeling does not require wakefulness, only allowance, only letting go, only the quiet acceptance that nothing needs to be held together right now. Water holds it. It always has. And as you rest, as the edges soften, as the flow deepens, the same calm that shaped land and time moves quietly through you, unnoticed, uninterrupted, continuing. Water does not end where we stop watching it. It continues in places unseen, beneath soil, beneath memory, beneath time. Long after voices fade, water still moves through stone. It enters cracks patiently, not to break, but to pass. Passing changes everything. Mountains soften, valleys deepen, land forgets its sharp edges. Nothing resists forever. And this quiet persistence became a lesson long before it became a story. Early people did not study water. They observed it. They noticed how it returned, without being summoned. They noticed how it left, without warning. And slowly, a different kind of understanding formed. Not control, not dominance. Relationship. Water, it was followed. Paths formed beside rivers. Not because people planned them, but because feet repeated movement. Repetition became habit. Habit became memory. Memory settled into place. This is how the first homelands appeared. Not declared, not conquered, settled gently, where water allowed stillness, and stillness allowed rest. Rest allowed thought. Thought did not rush. It moved slowly, like water finding its level. Questions did not demand answers. They waited, and waiting shaped the mind. Waiting taught that not everything arrives immediately. Waiting taught trust in return. Each season, water proved itself again. Rain arrived, rivers swelled, life responded. When rain failed, life did not argue. It adapted. This adaptation shaped belief. Not belief as doctrine, but belief as expectation. Expectation that water would come back. Expectation that absence was temporary. Expectation that nothing permanent could be built against flow. And so early structures bent to water's logic. Homes were raised. Fields were shaped. Cities leaned toward rivers, never away from them. Even power followed water. Kings ruled where water gathered. Trade flowed where currents allowed. And when water shifted, power shifted with it. No crown could command a river. No wall could stop the tide forever. Water erased certainty gently. It reminded humanity that control was an illusion. This reminder was not harsh. It was rhythmic. It repeated until it was understood, or until resistance softened. Even now, this understanding remains inside the body. The sound of rain calms without explanation. The sight of waves slows thought. The presence of water reduces urgency. This is not coincidence. It is memory older than culture, older than story, older than history. The body remembers what the mind forgot. It remembers that safety once meant proximity to water, that rest followed its presence, that survival depended on listening, and listening required quiet. Quiet remains water's language. It does not persuade. It does not insist. It surrounds. It carries. It allows. As awareness softens, water becomes more noticeable, not as image, but as feeling. The feeling of flow without direction, of movement without effort, of time without pressure. This is why water belongs in sleep. Sleep is not absence. It is return. Return to rhythm. Return to cycles. Return to a state where nothing needs to be solved. Water does not solve. It continues. And continuation is enough. You do not need to follow every stream. You do not need to remember every shoreline. Water holds these things already. As you rest, as attention loosens, as thought thins, the same calm that shaped early worlds moves quietly through you, not as history, not as belief, but as presence, steady, patient, uninterrupted. Water does not hurry. It never has. Before the first word was spoken, before the first mark was carved into stone, water was already shaping the world. It flowed without instruction. It moved without memory. And yet it remembered everything. Long before history learned how to write itself, the world was already written in water. Rivers traced paths across the land, not as borders, but as invitations. Where water lingered, life gathered. Where it withdrew, silence returned. Human beings did not choose where to begin. They followed. They followed the sound of flowing water, the rhythm of tides, the promise of return. Settlements rose beside rivers not because of ambition, but because water made stillness possible. Food grew where water rested. Time slowed where water returned each year. And slowly, without planning it, human memory began to form around these places. The first calendars were not made of numbers. They were made of floods. The first stories were not spoken aloud. They were repeated by seasons. When water rose, life paused. When it fell, life resumed. This rhythm taught patience. It taught waiting. It taught trust. Civilizations did not invent order. They learned it from water. The Tigris and Euphrates did not explain themselves, but they returned again and again, rewriting the land each time. The Nile did not promise stability, but it delivered balance. It erased boundaries, then redrew them, and people learned to live within that uncertainty. They learned that nothing permanent survives water, and nothing living exists without it. Water does not build monuments, it dissolves them, and in doing so, it teaches humility. Stone cracks under time, wood rots, metal corrodes, but water remains. It changes form, but never disappears. It sinks into earth, rises into air, returns again, and through all of this movement, it carries memory. Not memory as humans understand it, but memory as continuity. Everything that has lived has touched water. Everything that has ended has returned to it. When cities vanished, water remained. When names were forgotten, water still moved. When languages faded, water continued to speak in motion. The great floods found in ancient stories were not warnings. They were reminders. Reminders that water does not belong to us. We belong to its cycles. Long before laws were written, water enforced balance. Too much, and life retreated. Too little, and life waited. Nothing could argue with it. Nothing could command it. So belief followed water. Gods were placed in rivers, in rain, in the sea, not because water was divine, but because it was undeniable. It arrived without asking. It left without explanation. And humanity learned to listen. Listening created stillness. Stillness allowed thought. Thought gathered into stories. And stories gathered into meaning. But beneath every meaning, water remained unchanged. Empires rose along coasts, thinking the ocean was a boundary. They learned instead that it was a passage. Water connected what land separated. Ideas traveled along rivers before they traveled through words. Trade followed currents. Belief followed rain. Even conflict followed water's paths. But when conflict ended, water stayed. It covered battlefields. It smoothed broken stone. It erased footprints. Water does not judge. It absorbs. And absorption is a form of remembering. The deep ocean holds entire worlds, not as ruins, but as silence. Cities that sank did not vanish. They rested. Time does not press underwater. It slows. And in that slow, the past does not argue with the present. It simply exists. Human history often speaks of progress, but water teaches return. Everything returns. Vapor becomes rain. Rain becomes river. River becomes sea. Sea becomes cloud. Nothing is lost, only transformed. And this is why water feels familiar, even when we do not understand it. Our bodies remember it. We are made mostly of water. Our pulse moves like tide. Our breath rises and falls like waves. Even sleep follows water's logic. Awareness dissolves. Thought sinks. The mind becomes fluid. And in that fluid state, the stories water carries can be felt, not understood. You do not need to trace every river. You do not need to remember every flood. The memory is already present. In the quiet moments, when thought loosens its grip, water speaks without sound. It reminds the body how to soften. It teaches the mind how to drift. Nothing needs to be held together. Water has always done that work. Before us, it shaped land. Before language, it shaped time. Before belief, it shaped order. And long after names fade, it will continue. The world is not written in stone. Stone breaks. It is not written in words. Words vanish. The world is written in water, flowing, returning, remembering. You do not need to stay awake for this. Water does not require witnesses. It carries everything gently, whether we watch or not. And as you rest, it continues, just as it always has. Water never holds itself together. It allows itself to be held by gravity, by shape, by the quiet agreement between movement and space. This is why water feels safe, not because it is still, but because it does not resist being what it is. Resistance creates noise. Resistance creates tension. Water avoids both. When resistance fades, sound softens. When sound softens, attention loosens. This is how rest deepens. Without instruction, the body does not need to be convinced. It recognizes conditions. It responds. When there is no demand, it releases vigilance. When there is no urgency, it lowers effort. When there is no expectation, it settles. Water has always modeled this. It never anticipated the next moment. It did not prepare for what was coming. It responded when change arrived, and response was enough. Modern minds are trained differently. They anticipate. They rehearse. They prepare for outcomes that may never come. This creates constant motion without movement, tension without direction. Rest interrupts this pattern by removing the need to predict. Water never predicted its path. It followed it. This following is effortless. It does not require control. It requires allowance. As awareness continues to soften, there is less interest in sequence. What came before matters less. What comes next does not matter at all. Only continuation remains. Continuation without effort. Continuation without intention. The sound becomes less distinct, not quieter, more diffuse. Like water spreading across a wide plain, movement slows, because it no longer needs to concentrate. Nothing presses forward. Nothing pulls back. Nothing interrupts. In this state, there is no center of attention. Awareness becomes wide, and then begins to thin, not disappear. Thin, like mist rising from warm water, still present, less defined. Water transitions constantly, without announcing change. Ice becomes liquid. Liquid becomes vapor. Vapor becomes cloud. Cloud becomes rain. Rain becomes river. River becomes ocean. No stage is an ending. No stage requires explanation. They are all the same process, at different densities. Rest follows the same logic. Wakefulness does not end. It becomes lighter. Sleep does not begin. It becomes deeper. There is no line between them, only gradual redistribution. The body knows how to do this. It has done it thousands of times. It does not need guidance. It only needs space. Water provides space. By yielding, by spreading, by allowing gravity to act, the body yields in the same way. Muscles soften. Breath deepens. The need to monitor fades. Nothing important is lost. Nothing essential is missed. The world continues. Without supervision, water continues. Without observation, and rest arrives. Without command. This is why silence feels full. Near water, it is not empty. It is occupied by continuity. Continuity does not speak loudly. It does not demand. It simply exists. And existence is enough. As the rhythm continues, there is no reason to remain present. Presence remains on its own. When effort leaves, just as water remains, whether noticed or not, just as depth persists. Without measurement, there is no need to hold on to sound, no need to follow words, no need to stay awake. The current does not require attention. It flows, and flowing is enough. Water never asks how long it has been moving. It does not count distance. It does not measure progress. Movement itself is sufficient. This is why water feels timeless. Not because it ignores time, but because it does not relate to it. Time is something humans track when they are waiting for change. Water does not wait. It allows change to happen without expectation. This removes urgency, and urgency is what keeps the mind awake. When urgency fades, attention loosens naturally. The body recognizes the absence of demand as permission. Permission to slow, permission to release, permission to stop monitoring itself. In water, there is no sharp boundary between motion and stillness. Even when the surface appears calm, movement continues below. Even when waves fade, currents remain. Sleep works the same way. Awareness may soften, but processes continue. Repair continues. Regulation continues. Balance restores itself quietly. Nothing needs to be supervised. Nothing needs to be checked. This is why deep rest feels safe. Not because nothing happens, but because everything happens without effort. Water never forces balance. It allows imbalance to redistribute. Pressure moves. Weight shifts. Flow adapts. The human nervous system responds to this same principle. When effort is removed, systems recalibrate. Not instantly, gradually, like water finding its level. There is no instruction required, only time, and time does not need to be watched. As listening continues, there is less distinction between sound and silence. Words blend into rhythm. Rhythm blends into presence. Presence blends into rest. Nothing marks the transition, because transitions do not need markers. When there is no destination, the world written in water does not move toward conclusions. It moves toward equilibrium. Equilibrium is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply settles. In deep water, sound travels differently. Distance feels compressed. Direction loses importance. This is why the ocean feels vast. Even when unseen, vastness does not come from size. It comes from the absence of edges. The same absence appears as rest deepens. Thoughts no longer collide. They pass. They dissolve. They leave no trace. Water never held onto disturbance. It absorbed. It carried away. It released. The mind can do the same when it is not asked to perform. Nothing here needs interpretation. Nothing needs meaning. Nothing needs completion. The sound continues. The rhythm continues. And that continuity is enough. Just as rivers exist, without needing to be named. Just as rain falls, without requiring attention. Just as night arrives, without announcement. There is no reason to remain alert. No reason to listen closely. No reason to follow. The current does not require observation. It flows regardless. As awareness softens further, there is no loss, only release. Release of effort. Release of tension. Release of responsibility. Water never carried responsibility. It carried movement. And movement carried everything else. The body remembers this. It relaxes into gravity. It trusts support. It allows weight to be held externally. The surface of awareness fades. Depth becomes dominant. Nothing interrupts. Nothing demands response. Nothing pulls attention back. This is not an ending. It is continuation. Without direction. Without urgency. Without need. Water never ended. It became quieter. And quiet does not require attention. Water does not conclude stories. It dissolves them, not by erasing, but by softening their edges, until they no longer require attention. Everything that enters water eventually loses its urgency. Movement slows. Sharpness fades. The need to define disappears. This is how the world learned to rest. Long before humans learned how. Water never sought meaning. It carried continuity. And continuity does not ask questions. It simply remains. In the deepest places on Earth, there is no light, no sound, no movement that demands notice. Yet nothing there is empty. Pressure exists. Balance exists. Time exists, but without direction. This is the state toward which all motion gently leans. Not stopping, settling. The human body recognizes this without thought. When vigilance fades, when nothing is required, the body begins to follow older instructions. Instructions written not in language, but in matter. Breath lengthens. Weight releases. Awareness widens. Then loosens. Nothing needs to be held together. Water has always done the holding. Rivers do not remember where they began. They do not worry about where they end. They widen, they slow, they become something broader, then direction. And when they reach the sea, they do not disappear. They are absorbed. Absorption is not loss. It is belonging without boundary. The ocean does not ask what a river was. It receives it. This is the quiet promise water has always made. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is erased. Nothing truly ends. It only changes how tightly it is held. As rest deepens, the same process unfolds. Thoughts do not stop. They spread. They lose edges. They become background movement, rather than foreground demand. This is not absence. It is diffusion. The mind does not shut down. It opens, not outward, inward, toward stillness, toward neutrality, toward a state where nothing pulls harder than anything else. Water never chose stillness. Stillness emerged when movement no longer needed to concentrate. This is why deep water feels ancient. Not because it is old, but because it is undisturbed. Disturbance requires attention. Depth does not. The deeper awareness goes, the less it needs to define itself. Identity softens. Boundaries thin. There is no need to know where one thing ends and another begins. Water has never needed such distinctions. It touches everything without separating itself. This is why immersion feels calming, why floating feels safe, why the sound of water quiets thought. Without instruction, the nervous system recognizes a familiar architecture, a world where nothing must be controlled for balance to exist. The world written in water does not reward effort. It responds to allowance. The more it is allowed to move, the more stable it becomes. This is true for landscapes. This is true for rest. Sleep is not something you enter. It is something that arrives. When nothing blocks it, there is no moment to observe, no threshold to cross, no signal announcing arrival, just a gradual release of the need to stay present. Water never stays present. It stays continuous, and continuity is enough. As the sound continues, it does not try to hold attention. It becomes texture, like rain heard through distance, like waves beneath a hull, present, but not demanding. This is intentional, not to distract, but to allow awareness to loosen its grip. Nothing important is happening. Nothing needs response. Nothing will change suddenly. The system is safe to let go. Water never rushes into silence. Silence gathers naturally when movement no longer competes. The same happens here. Words become less distinct. Meaning becomes less necessary. Sound becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes background. Background becomes rest. There is no loss in this, only redistribution. Everything remains, just held more gently. The world does not need to be watched. It has always known how to continue. Water has shaped continents without observation. It has carried time forward without memory. It has held life without explanation. And now, nothing requires attention. Not the sound, not the words, not the moment. Awareness is free to drift, free to thin, free to settle. There is no reason to stay awake, no reason to follow, no reason to remember. The current does not need witnesses. It moves, whether noticed or not, and rest arrives, whether invited or not. Nothing ends. Everything settles, and that is enough. Water never insists on being noticed. It continues whether it is named or ignored. This quiet independence is what makes it enduring. Civilizations rose by learning to follow water, not by trying to command it. They built near it, planned around it, waited for it, and waiting shaped a different relationship with time. Time was not something to defeat. It was something to move with. Water does not resist time. It carries it. Each moment dissolves into the next, without friction. This is why water feels ancient, even when it is new. A river today is not older than a river yesterday, yet it feels timeless, because continuity is not measured in age. It is measured in flow. The human mind rarely experiences this anymore. It jumps, it fragments, it divides. But when rest deepens, It remembers another way of moving, not in steps, in drift, in gentle transition, in states that blend rather than change. Water never makes sharp turns. Even when redirected, it curves, it softens direction, it avoids rupture. This softness is not weakness, it is sustainability. Everything rigid eventually breaks. Everything fluid adapts. The body understands this. When allowed to rest, it chooses the least resistant path. Breathing becomes slower, not by force, but by ease. Muscles loosen, not by command, but by permission. Thoughts fade, not because they are silenced, but because they are no longer needed. Water never solved problems. It redistributed them. Pressure did not accumulate. It moved, and movement prevented collapse. The same principle applies to the mind. When effort is released, tension redistributes. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be resolved. The system knows how to rebalance itself. This is why deep rest feels intelligent, not empty, not passive, but quietly active. Beneath the surface, like deep currents in the ocean, that never stop, yet never disturb. The surface may react. The depth remains stable. This stability is what allows surrender, not trust in outcome, but trust in process. Water never promises calm seas. It promises continuity, and continuity is enough. As the sound continues, it becomes less important, not because it disappears, but because attention no longer clings to it. Listening becomes optional. Awareness widens, then thins. Like fog lifting without urgency, there is no moment to mark, no signal that says now. Transitions happen without announcement. Water never announces change. It simply becomes something else. Ice melts, mist forms, rain falls. No phase is an interruption. They are all the same movement, at different densities. Sleep follows this exact logic. Wakefulness does not stop. It thins. Rest does not begin. It deepens. Nothing switches off. Nothing switches on. There is only a shift in density. Awareness becomes lighter. Thought becomes quieter. Identity becomes less defined. Not gone. Less necessary. Water does not define itself. It adapts to whatever holds it. A cup, a riverbed, an ocean basin. It does not argue with shape. It accepts it. This acceptance is what creates calm. The body, when resting, does the same. It accepts gravity, accepts support, accepts stillness. Nothing needs to be held upright anymore. Nothing needs to be maintained. Water carries weight effortlessly. And now, so does rest. The world written in water does not ask to be understood. It asks to be allowed. Allowed to move. Allowed to settle. Allowed to remain incomplete. Completion is a human preference. Water prefers continuity, and continuity is what carries everything forward. Without effort, as attention drifts further, there is no need to stay present. Presence remains without supervision, just as water flows, without witnesses, just as time moves, without being counted, just as night arrives, without ceremony. Nothing is required. Nothing is expected. Nothing is about to happen. The system is stable. The current is gentle. Depth is holding everything. And rest arrives quietly, on its own.